I would like to go over a few housekeeping items. Our call today is set up so that only our presenters can speak to the group. However, we will be taking questions. You may submit your questions at any time during the webinar using the online question and answer chat function located in the lower right-hand side of your screen. Our presenters will respond to questions during the Q&A session at the end of the training in the order in which they are received and as time permits. Just above the Q&A chat window on your screen, you will see a file share pod that contains a downloadable PDF of today's webinar slides. We suggest that you download the presentation at this time so that you will be able to refer to it in the event of connectivity problems during the webinar. Please click on the file name and then click on the Download File button to save your webinar slides to your computer. And now let's get started. Amy Banks, a management and program analyst from ED's Center for School Preparedness within the Office of Safe and Healthy Students, will start things off. Amy has been with the department for 7 years, focusing on K-12 school and higher education emergency management, homeland security, and a variety of interagency initiatives. She will be followed by our guest presenter, Deshelle Cleghorn, a program analyst for the Industry Engagement and Resilience, or IER, branch within the DHS Office of Cybersecurity and Communications, or CS&C. Mrs. Cleghorn assists IER in conducting outreach across the critical infrastructure community for the C3 voluntary program and working with the critical infrastructure sectors on developing cyber risk management strategies. Mrs. Cleghorn manages the cross-sector cybersecurity portfolio for CS&C to include working with public-private sector leadership in the critical infrastructure sectors to build a strong foundation of cybersecurity knowledge, develop cybersecurity strategies and processes, and promote national-level cybersecurity risk assessment and risk management methodologies. Mrs. Cleghorn also served in the United States Air Force for 10 years. The CS&C is responsible for enhancing the security, resilience, and reliability of the nation's cyber and communications infrastructure. CS&C works to prevent or minimize disruptions to critical information infrastructure in order to protect the public, the economy, and government services. CS&C leads efforts to protect the federal .gov domain of civilian government networks and to collaborate with the private sector, the .com domain, to increase the security of critical networks. And now we'll begin the presentation.
Thank you, Sean. Good afternoon. My name is Akshay Jakatar, and I'm standing in for Amy Banks, who had to step away momentarily. Here's the agenda for our webinar today. Cybersecurity is about preventing unauthorized people from viewing, changing, and manipulating private information that they should not have access to. Before we discuss cybersecurity in more detail, we'll turn to some background information on the 6-step planning process, which I will explain shortly in reference to integrating cybersecurity into your emergency operations plan. This will be followed by a detailed overview of cybersecurity, the landscape of IHE cyber threats and trends, and DHS cybersecurity resources, programs, and tools for IHEs. Following that, we'll begin our brief Q&A session. In January 2013, President Obama put forth his Now is the Time plan to reduce gun violence. One of the executive actions put forth in this plan was the development of new guides developed in collaboration with ED, DOJ, led by the FBI, DHS, led by FEMA, and Health and Human Services. The guides, which incorporate lessons learned from the shootings in Newtown and Oak Creek, as well as the tornadoes in Oklahoma, can be customized to each type of community and may be used to create new EOPs, as well as to revise and update existing EOPs. The guides were developed with support from state and local practitioners, as well as organizations supporting emergency management. Presidential Policy Directive 8 describes the nation's approach to preparedness. This approach aims to have all planning efforts align from the building level to the local, state, and federal levels. In addition, this approach helps to ensure planning efforts are aligned among IHE officials and their partners, such as first responders. PPD 8 defines preparedness around 5 mission areas: These are prevention, mitigation, protection, response, and recovery. It represents an evolution in our collective understanding of national preparedness and is based on the lessons learned from terrorist attacks, hurricane incidents, and other experiences. I will now go over these in detail. Prevention means the capabilities necessary to avoid, deter, or stop an imminent crime or threatened or actual mass casualty incident. Mitigation means the capabilities necessary to eliminate or reduce the loss of life and property damage by lessening the impact of an event or emergency. Protection means the capabilities to secure IHEs against acts of violence and man-made or natural disasters. Response is the capabilities necessary to stabilize an emergency once it has already happened or is certain to happen in an unpreventable way. And recovery. Recovery is the capabilities necessary to assist IHEs affected by an event or emergency in restoring the learning environment. These mission areas generally align with the three timeframes associated with an incident: before, during, and after. The majority of prevention, mitigation, and protection activities generally occur before an incident, although these three mission areas do have ongoing activities that can occur throughout an incident. Response activities occur during an incident, while recovery activities can begin during an incident and occur after an incident. One of the key features of the guides is the six-step planning process you see on your screen. These steps are sequenced to support a collaborative process to developing, enhancing, or implementing an EOP, which invites multiple perspectives for information gathering, prioritizing, goal setting, the execution of specific activities, and evaluation. The process is intended to be cyclical and ongoing. The planning team should work through the 6 steps to create and implement their IHE's EOP. IHEs can use the process to develop a plan, perform a comprehensive review of their existing plan, and to conduct reviews of the plan's component parts. Each step will improve the IHE's response to ongoing emergency activities, as well as the training, drills, equipment, and resources that are currently in use. Step 1 of the planning process is form a collaborative planning team. Close collaboration between IHEs and community partners ensures the coordination of efforts and the integration of EOPs. On this slide, you will see examples of potential members of the planning team. The planning team should be small enough to permit close collaboration with first responders and other community partners, and yet large enough to be representative of the IHE, its students and families, and the community. It is recommended that planning teams at the IHEs responsible for developing and revising an EOP use this process to guide their efforts. It is also recommended that IHEs compare existing plans and processes against the content and process outlined in the IHE guide. Step 2 in the planning process prompts the planning team to identify threats and hazards likely to affect the IHE and community. Although the threats and hazards identified by each IHE are different, all IHEs should consider including cyber in their list of threats and hazards. Step 2 prompts planning teams to assess the risk posed by cyber threats and hazards and to identify cyber vulnerabilities. A cyber threat is human-caused, whereas a cyber hazard is not. Vulnerabilities refers to the characteristics of the IHE. These may be structure, equipment, information technology, or electrical systems, grounds and surrounding areas, and others that could make it more susceptible to the identified threats and hazards. Vulnerability assessments help IHEs identify the critical areas that make them the most vulnerable. Assessments also allow IHEs to evaluate the adverse effects and their likelihood, as well as hazards that are identified and the potential strategies to prevent or mitigate cybersecurity emergencies. If the planning team identifies cybersecurity as a priority for the IHE, then steps 3 and 4 will prompt the planning team to develop procedures for addressing a variety of cyber threats and hazards in the IHE EOP. In steps 3 and 4, the planning team will develop goals and objectives for each of the cyber threats and hazards identified in step 2, and then will develop courses of action for accomplishing each of the objectives. Goals, objectives, and courses of action should address cyber threats and hazards before, during, and after a cybersecurity incident occurs. As planning teams develop courses of action for threats and hazards, they should consider the federal, state, and local regulations or mandates that often apply to specific hazards. It is likely that there will be common action steps to address cybersecurity, that will fall into functional categories that overlap with a variety of other threats and hazards. However, it may be necessary for your IAG to create a cyber threat and hazard-specific annex. Functional annexes focus on critical operational functions and the courses of action developed to carry them out, and threat and hazard-specific annexes describe the courses of action unique to particular threats and hazards. You may find more information on functional and threat and hazard-specific annexes in the IHA Guide and through a variety of trainings on the guides available through the REMS TA Center at rems.ed.gov. After determining the goals, objectives, and courses of action related to cybersecurity, the planning team moves into Step 5, Plan Preparation, Review, and Approval. While the content of the plan to address cybersecurity was developed in Steps 3 and 4, in Step 5 the content is written out and then reviewed. The recommended criteria for a well-designed plan to address cybersecurity include addressing how the annex connects to state, county, and municipal plans, identifying a chain of command, including contact information for key staff, and clearly identifying roles and responsibilities. In Step 6, the planning team is tasked with implementing and maintaining the plan, including how to address cybersecurity. This step involves training stakeholders on the plan and their responsibilities, exercising the plan, and reviewing, revising, and maintaining the plan. Identifying lessons learned closes the loop in the planning process. Lessons learned add to the information collected in Step 2 of the planning process, understand the situation, so that the planning process starts again. So, that is briefly how cybersecurity could be integrated into the recommended 6-step planning process for developing a high-quality emergency operations plan for any institution of higher education. And now for an overview of cybersecurity, details on the landscape, cyber threats and trends IHG should consider, and related DHS resources and programs. We'll turn to the next slide. This portion of the presentation was to be presented by Michelle Cleghorn. She has had to step away momentarily, so I will continue speaking. The Industry Engagement and Resilience Branch is part of the Office of Cybersecurity and Communications within the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Within the Industry Engagement and Resilience Branch, the cross-sector program serves as a cybersecurity resource for the 16 critical infrastructure sectors. IER's cross-sector program also has dedicated liaisons who are experts in the cybersecurity aspects of each sector, maintain communications with sector leadership, and provide insight and feedback on sector annual reports and requirements. IER also has a suite of cybersecurity capabilities that are offered to sectors and to sector partners to address cybersecurity, partnerships, and risk management. The goal for today is to discuss the importance of cybersecurity to colleges and universities, specifically in regards to protecting cyber infrastructure and how to integrate cybersecurity within a new or existing emergency operations plan. We also want to discuss how the Department of Homeland Security takes a comprehensive approach through each of its divisions to offer interested stakeholders the resources and tools needed to conduct a self-assessment and to develop responses to cyber threats that work for their unique situations. First, we will define cyber infrastructure and the threats to it generally, and then we will discuss how this affects the owners and operators within colleges and universities. We will conclude by looking at the various programs, tools, and resources that DHS and the TA Center offer and provide to IHGs in approaching and developing a cybersecurity strategy. Cybersecurity is about preventing unauthorized people from viewing, changing, and manipulating private information that they should not have access to. For example, databases for a newspaper's website contain a trove of information, the stories posted to the website, the personal and financial details of subscribers, and the login information of editors and reporters. A user who gains access to the website could manipulate the stories in minor ways that could harm the newspaper's reputation, deface the public-facing website to make a political or activist statement, sell subscriber information to spammers, or use it themselves to make fraudulent purchases, or utilize the login information of reporters to access their email accounts and expose sensitive details about confidential, anonymous sources. Those databases need to be protected in such a way that individuals attempting to view or manipulate the information would be unable to enter, access, alter, or use anything that they find. In the event of a successful attack, cybersecurity also includes the ability to restore both the computer systems and the information they contain in the event of an emergency. That newspaper's website requires a constant connection to the internet to function. If an unauthorized user were to change the details of a story, or a denial of service attack were to hit and disrupt the website, a cybersecurity policy would have the necessary steps in place to restore operations. The key is that cybersecurity is a shared responsibility that the government, private sector owners and operators, and associations must work together to address. On your scene, you'll see an example of a cybersecurity scenario. This was reported in the New York Times in January of 2013. And you'll see here that the website of a newspaper is publishing a series of articles discussing the personal financial details of a foreign official. And in response, the foreign country attempts to obtain unauthorized access into the website to gather the login details of the reporter's email to search for information on confidential sources. Within the realm of cyber infrastructure, there are generally three types of cyber systems. Let's go through these in detail. The first are your business systems, which are used to manage or support common business processes and operations. These are the systems that sustain the day-to-day business for owners and operators across colleges and universities, such as email systems, e-commerce systems, and enterprise resource planning systems. The second type of cyber system are the control systems, which are used to monitor and control physical functions. These are the systems that control heating and cooling, as well as any automated equipment and machinery, HVAC systems, elevator control systems, and so on. Finally, there are systems that support security and safety. For security, these systems manage physical access. Safety systems alert members of the public and emergency response personnel of potential emergencies. All three types of cyber systems rely on IT to maintain the regular flow of business, so securing these IT systems is a major responsibility. Even systems that focus on physical security, such as an identification ID badge system, can be vulnerable to cyber attacks. When someone swipes an ID badge, the automated access control systems check their identity against the database of authorized users. If someone is able to hack into this database, they could grant access to unauthorized persons or deny access to legitimate users. Due to the interconnected nature of cyber systems, vulnerabilities can have an additional implication beyond the initial surface-level damage. For example, if that ID badge system checks an ID against a list of personnel in the human resources database, then breaching the ID badge system could allow a hacker into personnel records. These records, which may contain personal information such as social security numbers, can then lead to a wide range of identity theft crimes. As you can see, addressing asset protection can be difficult because it requires a comprehensive plan that encompasses the entirety of the physical and cyber infrastructure. One insecure system could potentially compromise the entire cyber infrastructure. Let's take a look at some recent headlines. This slide features headlines from the past several months that cover cyber incidents and trends relevant to colleges and universities. First, a California university recently uncovered an August 2013 cyber attack that resulted in the dissemination of the personally identifiable information of almost 6,000 people. According to the article, the attack was carried out using compromised software to expose the names, social security numbers, and addresses of employees facilitating a summer education program. This incident highlights the continued trend of data breaches in colleges and universities, as well as the fact that sometimes it takes months or even years to find out about past breaches. Second, according to a recent security study, institutions of higher education in the United States are more vulnerable to cyber attacks than the healthcare and retail industries. The article also states that challenges stemming from safeguarding open networks to satisfying a variety of technology requirements have made it difficult to protect IT infrastructure. This article highlights the continuing threat to academic institutions posed by malicious actors and unwitting insiders as a result of the valuable data stored on university systems and the variety of vulnerabilities that exist within these networks. It also shows that security studies, in this case conducted by a security company, are focusing on the education industry. Third, a Louisiana University data breach has potentially exposed the personally identifiable information of several recent graduates. According to the article, a phishing scam was used to lure an employee into sending his or her email credentials to a malicious actor. This incident highlights using the trend of fake emails and social engineering techniques to obtain both sensitive and potentially lucrative credentials. And finally, 2 California colleges revealed that employee mistakes resulted in the dissemination of student personally identifiable information at both institutions. According to the article, the information of approximately 35,000 students from one of the colleges was delivered to an erroneous external email address. Similarly, at the other institution, an employee sent an unauthorized email containing nearly 2,000 former and current employees' personal information to 78 other staff members. These situations highlight the potential data breach threat posed by accidental information releases. The last slide showed you a quick snapshot of a few articles in the news for the past couple of months, but what if we step back and take a look at the common education-based cybersecurity trends for the past year? Found using IER's open source research, here are the cybersecurity trends as we have been tracking them over the past year or so. We do this for 16 different critical infrastructure sectors. For tracking purposes, DHS includes education as a component of the government facility sector. Within the government facility sector, however, DHS tracks 2 trends that affect education stakeholders most directly, and these are network and data breaches and insider threat. In line with what we saw on the previous slide, the top trend being tracked is network and data breaches. There are multiple ways to define these kinds of breaches, so the definition is simply when outside actors gain unauthorized access to computer networks to destroy, disable systems, and or steal data. Over the last few years, security experts have speculated that education stakeholder systems and data are being increasingly targeted by malicious actors for several reasons. The first is that they represent a treasure trove of personal information that can be used for identity theft or sold on the black market to others. IHEs, for example, keep personal and financial information on not only current students and employees, but a record of former students and employees. Second, there is a perception among security experts and perhaps malicious actors that education stakeholders do not have the security budgets that a private sector organization with similar sensitive information may have. If nothing else, information thieves are opportunists looking to grab the most information for the least effort and cost. The example in the right-hand column shows a unique example of a non-information theft breach. Malicious actors gained unauthorized access to university servers for the purpose of using the network resources themselves to conduct an operation known as cryptocurrency mining rather than steal information itself. The example shows that education systems and networks themselves may be the target of malicious actors during breaches. Also reflective of the last slide, insider threat is a major trend within education. Note that in the definition, we include employees or trusted third parties who intentionally or unintentionally damage, destroy a system, and/or steal data. The unintentional part is important here. Many of the cybersecurity issues being seen within education appear to involve mistakes, such as attaching sensitive files with personally identifiable information to mass email distribution lists. The cost for even these mistakes can be high. 47 states have enacted legislation requiring private or government entities to notify individuals of security breaches of information involving personally identifiable information. The cost of this notification and any resulting legal liability can be severe. There are also other consequences as well. The example in the right-hand column describes an incident in which student information was mistakenly attached to an email that was widely distributed. In this case, there was some interesting fallout. Since the breach included class ranks and grade point averages, a prominent legal blog seized upon the data to estimate and then criticize the university's grading curve system, which could negatively affect the school's academic reputation. Before I discuss existing DHS programs and resources, I'd like to briefly mention a few government directions, documents, and programs related to cybersecurity that you may have heard about lately. First, in February of 2013, President Obama issued Presidential Policy Directive 21, entitled Critical Infrastructure Security and Resilience. This directive states the federal government's worldview when it comes to critical infrastructure. The last time the White House provided this kind of worldview was in 2003 via DHS Presidential Directive 7, also known as HSPD 7. PPD 21 keeps to several of the core tenets of HSPD 7, but being issued 10 years later is an update. Essentially, PPD 21 says that a majority of the assets that are considered critical infrastructure are privately owned, and that the federal government must form a partnership with those private, state, and local partners in order to best secure critical infrastructure. The term most frequently used to describe this cooperation is public-private partnership. Within PPD 21 was a directive that the federal government must revise the National Infrastructure Protection Plan, known as NIP. If PPD 21 sets the stage by saying the federal government must engage in a public-private partnership, then the NIP is the plan to accomplish that. Per PPD 21, it was revised and updated in 2013. It is important to note how cybersecurity fits into both PPD 21 and the NIP. Essentially, in the 10 years since HSPD 7 was written, and the 4 years since the NIP was last updated, cybersecurity and cyber threats hit the world stage in a major way. Both documents bring cybersecurity needs to the forefront much more than their previous versions. So, to tie with this new cybersecurity focus, President Obama also issued Executive Order 13636 titled Improving Critical Infrastructure Cybersecurity in February of 2013. It has several parts, but one of the most prominent is that it tasks the National Institute of Standards and Technology to work with the industry in developing a voluntary framework to reduce cyber risks to critical infrastructure. This framework is based on existing standards, guidelines, and practices. The framework, which was published in February 2014, enables organizations, regardless of size, degree of cybersecurity risk, or cybersecurity sophistication, to apply the principles and best practices of risk management to improving the security and resilience of critical infrastructure. The framework provides organization and structure to today's multiple approaches to cybersecurity by assembling standards, guidelines, and practices that are working effectively in industry today. And lastly, since the NIST cybersecurity framework is new and organizations have never used it before, the Industry Engagement and Resilience Branch has been tasked with running the Critical Infrastructure Cyber Community Voluntary Program. It is called the C-Cubed Voluntary Program. Here are the specific programs that these documents are driving toward. As mentioned on the last slide, C-Cubed Voluntary Program is a touchpoint for organizations of all sizes to learn about the NIST security framework and how to start using it in their organization. As you can see on this slide, this program is designed to serve businesses, federal government agencies, academia, and state, local, tribal, and territorial government partners. There are two websites listed here that provide more information on the framework and the C-Cubed voluntary program. The last link is actually a list of cybersecurity and cyber risk management resources specifically for the academic community. We encourage you to visit these links. Cyber Resilience Review, CRR, is a no-cost, voluntary, non-technical assessment to evaluate an organization's operational resilience and cybersecurity practices. The CRR may be conducted as a downloadable self-assessment or as an on-site assessment facilitated by DHS cybersecurity professionals. The review assesses enterprise programs and practices across a range of 10 domains, including risk assessment, incident management, service continuity, and others. For more information, visit the URL on your screen. And Cybersecurity Evaluation Tool, CSET. This is a self-assessment tool that provides prioritized recommendations and enables users to assess their network and industrial control system security practices against industry and government standards. Organizations can also request on-site cybersecurity consulting, a facilitated site visit that could include basic security assessments, network architectural review and verification, network scanning using custom tools to identify malicious activity, and indicators of compromise and penetration testing. For more information, visit the URL on your screen. Cybersecurity advisors are regionally located DHS personnel who direct coordination, outreach, and regional support to protect cyber components essential to the sustainability, preparedness, and protection of the nation's critical infrastructure and SLTT governments. CSAs offer immediate and sustained assistance to prepare and protect SLTT governments and private entities. For more information, you may email cyberadvisor@hq.dhs.gov. Protective security advisors are trained critical infrastructure protection and vulnerability mitigation subject matter experts. The PSA program focuses on physical site security and resiliency assessments, planning and engagement, incident management assistance, and vulnerability and consequence information sharing. For more information, visit dhs.gov/protective security advisors. Cyber Information Sharing and Collaboration Program. It enhances cybersecurity collaboration between DHS and critical infrastructure owners and operators and leverages government and industry subject matter experts to collaboratively respond to cybersecurity incidents. For more information on this program, you may email CISCP_coordination@hq.dhs.gov. And the DHS's Enhanced Cybersecurity Services, or ECS program. This program supports voluntary information sharing to assist and improve the protection of critical infrastructure systems from unauthorized access, exploitation, or data exfiltration. The program shares cyber threat information with qualified commercial service providers. And for more information on this program, you may visit the URL on your screen or email ecs_program@hq.dhs.gov. The National Cybersecurity and Communications Integration Center is a central location where a diverse set of public and private sector partners involved in cybersecurity and communications protection coordinate and synchronize their efforts. The NCCIC analyzes cybersecurity and communications information, shares timely and actionable information, and coordinates response, mitigation, and recovery efforts. For more information, visit the URL on your screen. And the United States Computer Emergency Readiness Team, USCERT. This team collaborates with government, private sector, research community, and international entities to monitor cyber trends. USCERT provides access to actionable situational awareness reports, detection information about emerging cyber threats and vulnerabilities, and cybersecurity warning and alert notifications through the National Cyber Alert System. More information on this program is available at www.uscert.gov. National Cybersecurity Awareness Month occurs each October and is designed to engage and educate the public and private sectors to create a safe, secure, and resilient cyber environment. Through a series of events and programs across the country, this initiative raises awareness about cybersecurity. And Stop, Think, Connect campaign, a national public awareness campaign aimed at increasing the understanding of cyber threats and empowering the American public to be safer and more secure online. The program offers resources and tips for students, young professionals, and educators. For more information on Stop, Think, Connect, visit the URL on your screen. DHS law enforcement agencies with jurisdiction over a wide range of federal crimes that include but are not limited to cybercrime, financial crime, and identity theft include the United States Secret Service and Immigration and Customs Enforcement. To report information about possible cybersecurity activity, you may contact your local USSS or ICE field offices. More information is available at secretservice.gov or ice.gov. The U.S. Secret Service operates the Electronic Crimes Task Forces, ECTF. These are a network of regional task forces that partner to prevent, detect, mitigate, and investigate various cyber crimes. ECTFs bring together not only federal, state, and local law enforcement, but also prosecutors, private industry, and academia. More than 200 academic institutions are members of the ECTF. For more information, visit secretservice.gov/ECTF. Additional tools and resources are available for academia to use as part of their analytical and protective measures and efforts. These include the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, National Initiative for Cybersecurity Careers and Studies, Cybersecurity Workforce Planning Diagnostic, the National Cybersecurity Workforce Framework, and the National Centers of Academic Excellence. For more information related to these resources, as well as resources supporting cybersecurity career development and workforce planning, please visit us-cert.gov. The Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center is the focal point for cyber threat prevention, protection, response, and recovery for the nation's SLTT, state, local, tribal, and territorial governments. The MSISAC is a 24/7 cybersecurity operations center and provides real-time network monitoring, early cyber threat warnings and advisories, vulnerability identification, and mitigation and incident response. More information on this program is available at info@msisac.org. The Research and Education Networking Information Sharing and Analysis Center aids and promotes cybersecurity operational protection and response within the higher education and research communities, within the context of a private community of trusted representatives at member institutions, and in service to the R&E community at large. For more information, visit www.renisac.net. If you'd like to receive alerts about current security issues or vulnerabilities, or if you're interested in conducting a cybersecurity assessment and increasing cyber awareness among your students, faculty, and staff, you may visit the URLs on your screen. So we've shared with you the 6-step planning process for developing a high-quality EOP and how cyber considerations can be integrated, as well as a bit about cybersecurity, current threats and trends, and available resources. Let's review these in detail. Step 1 of the planning process, form a collaborative planning team. Here, close collaboration between IHEs and community partners ensures the coordination of efforts and the integration of EOPs. It is recommended that planning teams at IHEs responsible for developing and revising an IHE EOP use the IHE guide to guide their efforts. In step 2, the planning process prompts the planning team to identify threats and hazards likely to affect the IHE and community. If the planning team identifies the cybersecurity as a priority for the IHE, then steps 3 and 4 will prompt the planning team to develop procedures for addressing a variety of cyber threats and hazards in the EOP. In steps 3 and 4, the planning team will develop goals and objectives for each of the cyber threats and hazards identified in step 2, and then will develop courses of action for accomplishing each of these. Goals, objectives, and courses of action should address cyber threats and hazards before, during, and after a cybersecurity incident occurs. After determining the goals, objectives, and courses of action related to cybersecurity, the planning team will then move into step 5, plan preparation, review, and approval. In this step, the content is written out and then approved. And then in step 6, the planning team is tasked with implementing and maintaining the plan. Identifying lessons learned closes the loop in the planning process. Lessons learned add to the information collected in step 2 so that the planning process starts again. So that is a brief overview about how cybersecurity could be integrated into the recommended 6-step planning process for developing a high-quality emergency operations plan for an institution of higher education. And now I'd like to turn it over to Sean.
Thank you, Akshay. We invite you to visit the REMS TA Center. We're going to pause and take questions after a description of the REMS TA Center while we're waiting for our colleagues to return. So we invite you to visit the REMS TA Center website at http://rems.ed.gov to view or share the archived webinar, access the collaborative guides, and/or find resources pertaining to the planning process. You can also go there to access additional resources, publications, and trainings to help you in your emergency operations planning efforts for IHEs. The resources on the REMS TA Center website support the development of comprehensive EOPs for schools and IHEs. Our searchable resource repository contains practices, tools, and other items developed by the emergency managers pertinent to the needs of IHEs and K-12 schools as they engage in the process of emergency operations planning. Downloadable copies of the guides for developing high-quality school and IHE emergency operations plans are also available on the website. Archives of past webinars, including those providing an overview of the guides, as well as on special topics such as threat assessment, infectious diseases, and lockdown and evacuation procedure are also available on the website. The guides and resources are available now in the resources section of the site, and the archived presentation and other supporting documents for today's webinar will be available in the webinars section in approximately 5 to 7 business days. We also maintain a dedicated electronic mail address, info@remstacenter.org, and a toll-free telephone number, 1-855-781-REMS, or 7367, by which requests for technical assistance on topics pertaining to emergency operations planning for schools and IHEs may be submitted. And now we'll take a few minutes if you would like to submit questions. Just remember to pose your question using the Q&A chat function on the lower right side of your computer screen, and we will address them in the order that they're received and as we have time. We'll give a couple minutes for us to receive some questions. Okay, well, we have not received any questions, so I would like to thank everyone for joining us on the webinar today, and this concludes our webinar. Thank you very much.